My sword is bigger than your sword.
Nice try. Yours is prettier color though.
Hi, Sandy Mackey here with Conversations with Ask the Pool Guy.
And I'm Al Curtis.
So today we have something totally exciting that we're working on.
Yeah.
It is the future of legendary escapes and how to kind of bring our message into the 42 pools that the pool guy's got left in his career. So one of the things that I was brainstorming earlier is we've been talking about how to be able to do more of what we love and how to explain that to people. So being kind of on the marketing side of things and the idea side of the actual building, I was brainstorming different ways of expressing this to people. So one of the thoughts that I had was approaching this kind of like a theme park. So legendary escapes, residential backyard theme parks. And then as Al and I were talking about it, we were identifying different ways of kind of talking about the size and scope of projects. And what we've come up with is footprint sizes. So the new marketing will include terminology like small footprint, medium footprint, large footprint. And then what really gets us excited is the extensive footprint. And finally, something that I think we've embarked on just a little bit but want to definitely attract more of is the mega footprint projects.
I know what we're talking about because I've witnessed it. For us to put into words sort of the process of what happens and the detail that happens and the art part that happens is very difficult. And until people see it, how do we explain it? And I think those scales and sizes, they're words that people can put into mailboxes, but they still in no way, shape, or form describe the feeling of what that means. And I think that's the biggest challenge, and we've done it this way by verbalizing it over and over, and look what we've attracted, some amazing stuff into our lives already. But I would like to delve in on this conversation more into what are the words, what are the word usages, what are the word pictures that we could paint for people that they would get the sense of. Like one of the words you were asking about was, how do we describe our details differently in a way that people understand it? Because when we say, well, we're very detail oriented, to me that's dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure that the lines are straight and the coping's clean.
But the details
aren't that at all.
Are the detail in the vignette. So if we're doing a SpongeBob pool, it's like a little SpongeBob vignette here and little subtle nuances. So they're in the details, but they're not in the structural details. They're in the storytelling details. So that's probably a little more of it.
Let's use that vignette, that specific SpongeBob vignette. The homeowner came out yesterday, and she's been reserved about all of it. Ended up loving everything that we've done there. But
when we first talked,
she was
like
very
Disneyland-ish in the beginning.
She was worried.
She was not interested.
Subtle, little, minimal, as little as possible.
Yeah.
And so we know how she's thinking because we can't articulate what we mean. So we go ahead and do our thing anyway. And so I was explaining to her yesterday how the two particular vignettes that she's talking about are SpongeBob characters carved right into the rock with lights in them and stuff and all of that. And I explained how those came about. And then it was just this freak of nature, luck, whatever, calling into the universe, this stop at a garage sale and buy a old photographic enlarger that happened to have this perfectly sized tube with two magnifying lenses in it that I could then separate and use to create these two vignettes. And then I went on to say, and I had this really cool porthole, which, like magic, the porthole glass exactly fit the magnifying glass, so I could take the glass out, put the magnifying glass in, create this thing right into the wall, put lights in it. And so I'm trying to describe that to her. And she said out of everything there that we've done, those are her two favorite things. And that's a detail. That's a detail that you can't even imagine when you're starting that you're going to end up with. It was through the project and how that even came about, and I'll go a little deeper into the story. Karen went to Florida last year with Jamie. Remember, they flew down there to pick up Jamie's car and drove back. They stopped at a resale shop or something down there, and Karen found two little pieces for me. It was one was like a it goes into the dashboard compartment of a boat, and it's sort of like a floating. I guess it would be to help them with direction or something. It didn't exactly say north, south, east, and west, so it wasn't that, but it was something with that, and it kind of cool and it floats. And then there was this other little thing that was about this big around, and there's obviously magnifying glass or something in there, and it must have been used for dials or something to help. And I had that piece, and I'm looking at it going, what could we use this for? And I had said to her one day, I said, you know what would be really cool is if we embedded this into the concrete, but behind it we put a little picture of plankton, because plankton in the SpongeBob thing is tiny, and if you could peek into this glass and see plankton actually full size, how cool that would be. She said, oh, that's a great idea. So it was from that idea came magically these two really cool magnifying glasses show up in my life to be able to create these vignettes. And I actually I opened up one of them to show her yesterday because she was just loving how, oh, there you can see Squidward, and oh, you can see this and you can see that. And I opened them up because they look larger than life when you look through the mirror, and they're like this big. And she's staring at them, and she just thought that was so cool. But it's that interactive stuff. And she looked at me like I wouldn't know. She's like, they're even lit. She was really excited, but they're lit. Well, I know they're lit because I put them, and I said, as a matter of fact, there's 3 different colored lights in there because I put 3 lights in. 3? And I said, and the snail's in there too. She goes, She was, it was just like this constant thing that's the yummy part. So
she got to feel like a kid for a minute.
She did. Yeah. And she let go of all of the perceptions of what it should be. And I even opened it up and I said, look, there he is. What's his name? And she knew his name, whatever the name of the snail, SpongeBob snail is. And
I don't even know.
And she's like, oh yeah, there he is inside SpongeBob's house, because I got this mini SpongeBob's house that I put a blue light inside, and then I put the snail, can't even think of his name, inside there, and then there's a light shining down on the SpongeBob house, a little pineapple, and then there's an orange light shining onto the figurines. Now granted, this whole thing is this big. There's 3 little colored LEDs that we had to work into the concrete and carve around. And that's what lights me up. Of all the things, and there's 1,000 little items in that project and 1,000 things to talk about, and she was in awe of these 2 little things. Those are the details, because we can do those because we love to do those, because then we know the customer loves to do those. We don't sell those. We don't go, well, we'll do a vignette for $500 here, and we'll do a vignette for $800 here, and we'll do something for $200, because they have no concept of what that is. Instead, it's trust us to do this. And here's the woman who had said, well, minimal, we don't want any, whatever, and yet there's these really cool little spots that are totally SpongeBob, and she's in love with them. And I think it's that kind of stuff that, number one, we can't put into print. I don't think there's any way of describing that on paper that a potential client could read an ad slick that would tell them that.
Yeah.
It's the story of what happens, though, and how excited I can get about it, and everybody, because there's so many little things. Everyone that's been part of the team is proud of, oh, this is my part of the wall, and oh, this is what I did, and look what I carved over here, and everyone has signed it with their own signatures and stuff. But how do you tell a customer about that so that they get it? Other than they just trust us to do it, and I think that's where we're really fortunate, is the people that we've worked for thus far have just trusted us to do it. But I got 42 left. 42. That's not very many of special little detail things that I can do. And I know that I would like that every one of the 42 become really special.
Has that wow
and that
factor.
I don't ever have to compromise and do less than because a customer's anxious or because a customer has a party that they have to have, so we can't build the way we want to build. My hope for me is that we could take each one of the projects moving forward of those 42 and love on them. They don't have to be scale, and that's why I think where we started with this, small, medium, large, extraordinary, incredibly mega, whatever, I would love for a couple of them to be mega. I would love for a bunch of them to be extreme, or what's the E word we were using in there?
Expansive.
Expansive. I would love that. But I'd be okay with anyone between a small project with that much of yummy detail would be awesome. It's just in what we can deem small, there's just not as much available spice, because small is not just square footage, it's also elevation, so it's three-dimensional. It's not just a project getting bigger, because the pool doesn't need to get bigger.
No.
Our small project to our extraordinarily amazing, that could be the same pool, it's what happens around it. And so it's not this way, it's this way, because elevations come up, and now we can use common walls to build bars and to build, so you start creating all of those things. Well, those are elevations we can play in. When it's flat, we can pop up a waterfall and do some stuff, and that's really cool. But when we start doing this, and now we have elevations that we can face, then it gives us room to build wharf walls. And it gives us room to do vignettes, because now we have depth. We can sink it right into the wall. If
and
we're just flat, and treasure chests
like
and all that fun, yummy lighting and all the just hiding things in there and making it mysterious and making it the detail stuff.
What I love the idea of is hiding something new in each one of our special projects every year. And I know you've been doing that, from the treasure chest to the pirate grotto that you just put to bed. There'll be a surprise in there in the spring. And just like there's those little detail places in each of our projects that they can continue to be interactive even after we've left the job. So here's a challenge for you over the winter. We've got probably like a dozen projects that I would put in that super special, you almost use the word spicy.
Yeah.
So I want to add a little more spice to those in the spring when we know that they're opening up. My challenge to you is figure out how to make them a little more spicy in the spring.
And that certainly is a challenge, because our expansive ones are easy to do that too, because there's the environment's already rich for something new. The little more basic stuff, which is really cool and yummy in itself, is really hard to pull off something.
Do you remember surprising. One of the first, it was a vinyl liner pool, and you did the whole wood wall backdrop, and the homeowner at that point had said, I could see you coming in here every year and leaving me a new surprise. And I think that's just something that we just have to be dedicated to, even more than ever, whether you put it in place personally or we send it out and we make sure that it's embedded with a little kind of a note or something.
Do you remember on that particular job, I in fact did that. I found a really cool wooden plaque, kind of a old-fashioned look something or other, and I just arrived there one day and screwed it onto the wall and left. And it's those types of things that really make this experience good, because it's a constant surprise. It's what else can we do? How can we engage on a much deeper, richer human level and just be interactive, be entwined with people's lives? Now, it's just in this moment. We've talked about the marketing bubbles where we're all kind of our own bubble and we bounce off of each other, and that's really true. And if you think about life in general, we only interact like in one dimension with people, and then we bounce off and we go away. And I've told the story many times over the years about how I would drop my girls. One of my promises to myself and to my kids was, as they grew up, when they got to high school, I would drive them to school until they wanted to drive themselves. And I remember watching them, because I had two girls in high school at the time. Katie and Jessie are 3 years apart. But I remember them getting out of the car and leaving, and me recognizing that I only interface with them in a small part of their life. It's not 360 degrees, it's like 2 degrees. Because we bump into each other because I'm dad and they're kid, and we do stuff at home and we do all that, but they walked out of that car and they have this whole other world. It's friends I don't know, it's teachers I don't know, it's interactions I don't know anything about, it's feelings and emotions that don't even involve me. And we could live life that way and have our customer bump and go, which is what our industry is really famous for, bump and go as fast as you can go. Or it could be, how could we continue to bump? And how could we continue to act, not just 1 or 2 dimensionally, but how could we interact 3-dimensionally? And I think that's that part, that's that place where we're getting, and we're striving for more and attracting more, and then the onus is on us to do more, to be more, because it's really about our interaction. How can we continue to make it spectacular? It's not on the customer, it's on us. And it's that part that's a lot of fun. because I'll take that challenge because I love the idea of the challenge. I can think of every project on a thing that I already have. I bet if we looked at those 12 projects, I have something in my possession now that fits perfectly for each one of those that I could leave as a little token of my appreciation or big token of my appreciation.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So moving into the future, I think you'll see a little bit more in our marketing talking a little bit about the theme parks, just because, back to that conversation, we need to be able to communicate somehow to people who want that a little bit more expansive project. And as we were doing an organic marketing tic-tac-toe board about that, one of the most important things that came up for both of us is enthusiastic customers. So if we can start talking even more in the language that people can be enthusiastic about, what we're finding is even people that don't have that expansive of a budget, but that are super enthusiastic, like it just pulls our heartstrings and we just want to be able to work with them because we know that the level of detail and the little vignettes that we'd be able to put together will make them even more enthusiastic. And that's one of those things that when getting into a project with the pool guy feeds his creativity, is that enthusiasm and is those moments. If somebody is like, oh yeah, that's nice, that's one thing. But if somebody is like, oh my, that is amazing, that really fuels both you and the rest of the team in making it extraordinary.
It does, because without that, we don't know if we hit the mark or missed the mark. And it's every one of those moments that allows us to go, let's give more, let's give more, let's give more, let's do more. We can't stop now. We got to keep going. There's so much more we could do. And there's a good and a bad to that. And the only bad to that is it's a financial thing, is we're strapped at a certain level. And I don't ever want money to be the reason not to be who I am.
Yeah.
And I have needs, we all have needs. Beyond that though, money doesn't matter to me. It's can we do something that's regarded as yummy, regarded as awesome? Can we push ourselves to see new things? Because when we're working in the materials we're working in, we have no idea. We have somewhat of a working prototype of what things are going to be, but we never really know. And I'm kind of glad of that, because it just grows out of nothing. And it feels organic because it is. It's sort of this just a growing and evolving process. And that's who we are as people. We're not stagnant. We're not just this one way. We're growing and changing all the time. So why would we want our work to be stagnant? And why wouldn't we want it to just be growing and expanding at every turn in everything we're doing? Is that growth is just yummy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we've got some plans coming up for the future. So definitely stay tuned so that you can find out what they are as well.
Yeah, let's commit to everything we talk about. I mean, we're already there. We're not going to stop now, but let's just reinvigorate that and say, here it is. Here's the hill in front of us. It's not a mountain. It's just a hill, because all we need to do is figure out how to attract the people that want it, and that's not the hardest thing in the world, because we're already thinking like that. So. I'm with you.
Awesome. Until next time.